Been thinking about ways to support this research and to support the channel. Come up with a few different ideas, and hopefully they are acceptable to the community here. You can follow me at Patreon, patreon.com/billmillerflip, and you can support the channel that way. Links in the description. And as of today, I have my first patron. Excellent. $5 a month. Much appreciated. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Also, there's donation links in the show notes at the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to make a donation to the channel and to further the research and the short films, have a gander down there, take a look at what you see, and any and all donations are welcome and appreciated. Thank you. Been putting some thought to how to support the channel and further the research and continue with the short films. I've come up with a few different ideas. I think you're gonna like them. We can get into t-shirts. There you have them. Bill Miller Flip t-shirts. Get a hold of me at billmillerflip@yahoo.com. We'll get you set up with the t-shirt. Opening up the merchandise store as a way to help support the channel. Another idea that I've come up with is creating custom prints for you. If you see an image in one of the short films that I've created, let me know. I can get you a picture for your wall. We can get you set up there. Again, inquiries and orders come through. Get a hold of me at billmillerflip@yahoo.com for inquiries and orders on t-shirts and custom prints for your wall. I would love to continue creating films for you. And if you want to get a hold of me through PayPal, Venmo, or Buy Me a Coffee, those are donation links, and you'll find those in the show notes down at the bottom of the page. They'll take you directly to a link where you can make a donation to the research channel and short films. They are much appreciated. Thank you. The filmmaking is incredible. I'm so thankful to be in this position. Just thinking of ways to continue with it, supporting it, and becoming a well-rounded filmmaker and presentation creator and live stream host. Those are all things that I feel that I'm growing towards in the creativity department. So as the countdown nears 0, I'll tell you a little bit about the short film. It's the history of Baltimore, dating back to the First Nations, the American Indians that lived and thrived in this area. So we get into the different tribes and their locations and their history. Right at the start of the film, you'll hear the first narration is a digitized female voice, one of those computerized voices. It's actually pretty good. I think you're going to enjoy it. And then following the history of Baltimore, we go straight into the Great Baltimore Fire. And enjoy. I'll see you on the other side. The Great Fire of Baltimore. February 7th, 1904. A man drops a cigar. Reportedly, burning cigar ash fell through a broken piece of pavement glass, igniting the contents below. The aftermath. The Great Fire of Baltimore. The damage was enormous. In 30 hours, over 1,500 buildings were consumed. High-rise offices burned to their steel frames. The piers of the Inner Harbor, one of the city's most vital connections to the world, went up in flames. Yet the city survived, partly through chance and also through the efforts of the people in Baltimore and along the whole East Coast. At 10:48 on the morning of February 7th, 1904, the firefighters of Engine Company 15 responded to an automatic alarm at John Hurst and Company at Liberty Street on the south side of what is now Redwood Street, west of City Hall. They arrived to find the building filled with smoke. A little later, an explosion blew the roof off, showering the nearby streets with burning embers. The Hearst building was a fairly new one. The owners had built under the sidewalk in order to have use of that extra space, in this case, for shipping and wrapping. Additional illumination was provided. They had installed pavement glass in the sidewalk. One or more of the holes in the glass had been punched out. It is assumed that a cinder from a cigar or cigarette butt fell into the hole. At least that was determined later by an insurance underwriter committee. Within minutes of the Hearst building explosion, other buildings caught on fire. An hour after the initial alarm, over 24 vehicles had arrived to fight the growing inferno, and Fire Chief George W. Horton had requested the first out-of-state help from Washington, D.C. Fueled by heavy winds from the southwest, the fire ate its way east, threatening the very heart of the city. When Washington's much-needed engines arrived, to the cheers of the populace, they met a very unpleasant surprise. Their hose couplings were incompatible with Baltimore's fire hydrants. Binding the connections with canvas did little good. By Sunday night, the first fire companies had arrived from Wilmington and Delaware and Philadelphia, only to confront the same problem. Nor was that the only issue. A falling electrical wire hit Chief Horton within an hour of his arrival on the scene, and the opiates administered in his course of medical treatment knocked him out of commission for the duration. Horton had credibility and maturity and experience. Unfortunately, his replacement, Fire Department District Engineer August Emmerich, did not. As the fire spread, calls for a fire break went up. Had Horton been in command, he probably would have vetoed the idea. The dynamite, delivered from quarries and set up by quarrymen, blew out windows and scattered debris instead of causing implosions. This mistake helped the blaze spread further. By midday, Monday, some 19 fire departments along the East Coast were on the scene, the largest men and equipment contingent from New York City. Flames had consumed the city's financial district, including the Chamber of Commerce and the Stock Exchange, and moved south to consume the inner harbor. But the flames stopped at Jones Falls, finally brought under control by the firefighter crews. Jones Falls was a wastewater canal and stink hole. But had it not been there, the fire would have gone east. So here are some of these t-shirt prototypes that I'm working on. Let me know if you're interested in a t-shirt to help support the channel and the research. Got a lot of cool designs up. If you'd like to get a hold of me for any kind of request, it's billmillerflip@yahoo.com, and we'll get you set up with the t-shirt. So we get into these films of Baltimore following the fire. Baltimore did rebuild, and this footage from the 1920s, we do get some from the late 19-teens. Some really incredible film out there that I found. I did my best to clean it up, and it was a little rough around the edges, but here we see parts of Baltimore looking, I can't tell if that's new construction or destruction. It has that feel of destruction to it. So maybe this is one of the areas that was hit hard by the fire. I mean, it was 70 city blocks that went up in flames, 1,500 buildings. Laying of cornerstone of the Municipal Museum of Art. And here we have the facaders. The civilization that comes in and puts thin concrete skin around the existing old red brick structures. A copper box containing official records is sealed before placing in cornerstone. So there is some new brickwork you see in the lower right, but that upper, how old is that brickwork? That brickwork looks ancient. And what the facaders do is they come in and they put up a facade over the front and pretty much encapsulate the old building, encapsulating it in a thin layer of stone. of concrete. And we see this in Baltimore, and we see this all throughout the United States. We see this all through the North and South America and Europe and Asia and India and Africa. The old red brick structures, ancient structures. Baltimore Municipal Parade, 1917. But the facaders come in and they will create a new shell for an old structure. And making the old look new, I guess that's their purpose. Or they're taking advantage of the old red brick structures, but then they make their touches and make their adjustments and their design, and they create these thin stones where they pretty much give the whole outer structure a layer of concrete, essentially. But Baltimore looks like an amazing place back in the 1920s and beyond. Find my notes here. So we see the soldiers in the parade making their way through the streets of downtown Baltimore, and directly from the soldiers we go into the fire brigade, a branch of the military, parading their equipment down the streets to show the people that our city burned down once, but we're not going to let that happen again because we have these trucks. And they will stop the stone and the brick and the steel from burning. That's how good these trucks are. Lovely day. People out enjoying it. Just fascinating to see this old film and just the structure, the first means of transportation in America. Long before European settlers reached the shores, Maryland's home to dozens of thriving, vibrant societies. Today their ancestors and cultures live on. They have overcome centuries of hardship, dispossession, genocide, and discrimination, yet still they persist and flourish. Prior to European contact, Maryland was an important crossroads along the Atlantic seaboard and home to many tribes. Each region of the state was home to distinct nations, which were in turn linked by greater trade networks. The names of these nations are still with us, in the familiar names we use every day: Assateague, Choptank, Piscataway, Nanticoke, Susquehanna, Powhatan. All of these come to us from the native inhabitants of what would become Baltimore. Prior to European contact, Maryland was divided among few major nations by region. Among them were in the Shawnee and Ohio Valley tribes in the west, the Susquehanna in northern central Maryland, the Lenape in northeast Maryland, the Powhatans around what is now Washington, D.C., and the Choptank and Nanticoke on the eastern shore. During the colonial and early American period, the native inhabitants of Maryland were systematically removed from their lands and relocated westward, often to Oklahoma. The first group to gain recognition from the Maryland government was the Nanticoke tribe in 1881. Other tribes, nations, and confederacies followed throughout the 19th and 20th century. Today, 3 tribes are formally recognized by the state of Maryland: the Accohanic tribe, the Piscataway Conoy tribe, and the Piscataway Nation. The Maryland Commission on Indian Affairs serves 8 district native groups: the Accohanic Indian Tribe, the Asatege Peoples Tribe, the Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, the Naus Waywash Band of Indians, the Piscataway Conoy Confederacy and subtribes, the Piscataway Indian Nation, the Pocomoke Indian Nation. In the second half of the 20th century, the population of the Native Americans in Maryland began to go as many southern tribes migrated to the north along with many other minorities. Part of this migration included many members of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. The Lumbee settled in East Baltimore and in 1968, established the Baltimore American Indian Center, and were the driving force behind the campaign to rename Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day in Maryland. Today, Baltimore is home to the largest number of Lumbee outside of their traditional tribal lands. As of the last census, more than 40,000 people in Maryland identified as Native American. This building has obviously been facaded. I'm sure there's red brick down there at the base. They sure knew how to have a parade back in the day. After his address, the governor reviews a 3-hour parade in his honor. I've gotten word from some of the viewers of my short films that oftentimes they're watching them on their phone and it's hard to read some of the smaller print. So I've been making it a point to read some of the things on the screen to give the viewer a little bit more information and insight to what they're watching. Marshal Joffrey comes to Baltimore during Liberty Loan Drive. So I'm recording some narration over the top of the short film. This will probably get edited a little further more to kind of get rid of some of my stutters or speech problems that I'm experiencing at the time, but my goal is to become more familiar and more skilled at running live streams and OBS software, and I'm really looking to expand my skill set. Baltimore's welcome to Colonel Lindbergh. Lindbergh arrives in his famous plane, the Spirit of St. Louis. So the live streams are, I think they're going to be, they are a part of what I do, and I'd like to be more proficient at those going forward. So if this one seems a little rough around the edges, and greeting by committee headed by Mayor Broning and Mr. Farnks. So if it's a little rough, I apologize, but I think I've maxed out what my editing software can do as far as layers, and then adding more layers with narration I think is asking a bit too much of what my computer and software can do. So I'm giving it a shot this way, and hopefully it's presentable, and maybe with a little post-production I can give it a cleaner look and better sound. So this is a little bit experimental. I may be doing a few more later on in the week once I've kind of perfected, or at least gotten better at doing the narration over the top. So once I get a recording like this, then I can go back in and re-edit it, and it's more stable at that point, I should say. Then I can piece together some good clips from the overall bigger live stream kind of raw approach to it. Raw meaning that it's not timed to the second, and it's more free form, and I'm kind of shooting from the hip, kind of just letting it flow. There are some notes that I have, and I try to access those throughout the presentation, and hopefully you enjoy. But there is more to come as far as getting better at the skills and the better look for you. But here we got some more Baltimore from the 1920s. It's interesting that they have their front doors up in the air like that. So when I find these old films, there's a process of getting it into a video file into the computer, and once I got it in the computer, then I can do some cleaning up. Like for example, this film here, the edges were pretty raw, so I cropped it down to, I believe that's a 4:3 aspect ratio, and moved it over to the side, slid it over so it's, and the idea is that I will come later with the camera on me when I'm recording the next go round of the next layer of the process, and that's my camera footage of me while I'm doing the live stream. It's really fascinating how all of these different aspects interact with each other, and how data or how information is transferred from one software to the next. And it's to me it's challenging. I've been confused many times. I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm really just kind of winging it here in some cases, but in other cases I feel like I've polished things up a bit, and I've gotten quite a bit. I've received good feedback in the comment sections. I do my best to respond to the commenters and get some conversations going, and emails have been exchanged. So there is interest there in this type of research and in these type of presentations. I'd love to continue to do this, and oh, that's funny. Look at those kids walking like that. So I believe this clip here is recess. So this is a school day, and the kids are at school. Maybe they knew the cameras were gonna be there, and everybody's doing their best dance, and looks like everybody's dressed up nicely. I bet her mom's gonna be pissed she got her dress dirty. She doesn't care. Just 100 years ago, look how different things were 100 years ago. Everybody is so full of life, and they look just generally happy. I mean, these are well-mannered, well-groomed children, boys and girls. The history of Baltimore is really complex. I mean, as the documentary explained, the history of Baltimore goes back millennia. I mean, 1,000 years. What was it like in Baltimore 1,000 years ago? Were those buildings there then? I feel like some of those buildings were there centuries ago. A number of centuries ago. And it's only through the deep dives and the deep research that we start finding gems that may go against what you would find in the mainstream narrative. The mainstream narrative is carefully sculpted and worded to cover their tracks as best they can. But in some cases, the evidence speaks for itself. I'm merely sharing my research with you. I will link up in the show notes my resources and the articles that I've read from. Earlier in the Baltimore fire section, we saw the graphics of the fire. I had my friend Singeman over at the YouTube channel Singeman. He did those graphics for me of the cigar ash falling from the man's hand to the pavement glass and falling through the broken piece of pavement glass down into the storage compartment under the sidewalk, and that area bursts into flames. And that's Singeman. He did those graphics for me. I'd like to collaborate if it serves well to collaborate with others. I see that as a viable option to do in the future. Growing the community, expanding and meeting people and strengthening our research, collaborative topics will be served well as long as we are, upfront with each other and go forward with good intent. Thank you for those graphics, Singe Man. And if anybody would like to reach out to Singe Man, that's spelled capital SYNGE Man. Singe Man, you can find him on YouTube. I'm sure right now he's working on some graphics for the next, for his next project. So if you do review this again and you see those graphics of fire, those are from Singe Man. Thank you, Singe Man. I appreciate your efforts. That turned out really well. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled with the way it looks. I hope you are too. Governor Ritchie, Mayor Braining, Major General Fred Slodden, commanding 3rd Corps Area, United States of America. Boy, they sure knew how to do a parades. Detachment of Light Tanks, United States of America. Look at the old world structures in the background. So, not every building burned down in Baltimore, but 70 square blocks burned down. Some survived, but Baltimore, prior to the fire in 1904, the construction companies in Baltimore were preparing for the skyscraper boom that was coming to town. Other cities on the eastern seaboard, like Philadelphia and New York, were building skyscrapers, and Baltimore wanted to get in on it. And so prior to the fire, interestingly, the construction companies were preparing for the skyscraper boom. They were positioned well. And that darn fire burned down the areas where they were preparing to build. What a coincidence. And another thing to note on the Great Fire of Baltimore is that all of those red brick buildings that came down during the event, many of those bricks were repurposed. I mean, if you're at a construction site and you need a bunch of red bricks, but the lot next to you had a building burned down and there's millions of bricks laying around, you can clean up the bricks and repurpose them. So those 70 blocks of destroyed buildings were repurposed. The bricks and larger stones and whatever they could salvage went into the building that took its place. I thought that was an interesting note. I was not aware that the timing of that, the skyscraper boom coming to Baltimore and the construction companies positioning themselves well, and then that pesky fire of 1904 just paved the way, no pun intended, on taking out the old world structure at the heart, at the core of Baltimore, and replacing it with new construction. But that new construction still has an old world feel to it, if that makes any sense, because some of the architectural style did pass, from what I'm gathering. Like, there was old world architecture in Baltimore for centuries, and then some of that got destroyed, but there was some aspects of the old style found their way into the new construction of the buildings in downtown Baltimore. So what I think I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to finish the narration on this. Looks like it's about 14 minutes left on this old vintage Films of Baltimore. And then I think I want to turn around pretty quickly and run it as a live stream. So in future episodes, you may hear different voices of me in two different roles. The narration is being recorded at different times. So it's kind of a collage of video and audio, you know, a little piece of here and a little piece of there, and put them together and run it through layers. There's a layer of photographs. There's a layer of scrolling photographs where I'm scrolling the mouse and it's highlighting a section of a photograph, and then there's layer of film, and there's layers of music, and there's layers of narration. There's several layers it really is a collage of these different types of mediums, audio, visual, and timing. Timing is crucial to that as well. And having the proper levels, something I'm still growing and learning happily. The railway systems of the old world were vast, and I think the history of the railway system is older than what you'll find if you do a mainstream research dive. There's evidence that supports that the railway system was in use for much longer than most would give it credit for. And just think how elaborate your infrastructure would need to be if you were building railway systems, you know, not only around your city and around your state, but your nation. You have First Nation peoples connecting through their networks of friends and business acquaintances. And how are you going to move your goods from one place to another? And, you know, it's the railway if you have large-scale items, but the infrastructure, the railway system itself, that was an industry, and it still is, creating new railway lines, and they're highly regulated nowadays. Back in the day, if you had, you know, rails and some cinders, you could build your own railway. And that's the presentation. If you'd like to follow me on Patreon, my link is at patreon.com/billmillerflip, and you can You can see my progress there. You don't necessarily have to make a donation, but you could see how I'm doing. And if you click on the link, you'll find this. I have one patron, $5 a month. Woohoo! I'm getting started. Thank you to my patron. I really do appreciate that. And monthly, wow, thank you. And if you'd like to make a donation, the links are in the show notes at the bottom of the screen. You can click on the links and they'll take you to ways to support the channel. I have different options available there. All highly encrypted, all safe. I'm also getting into t-shirts. Would you like a Great Fire of Baltimore t-shirt? I know you would. You can support the research and be stylish at the same time. Look at that. Boom. Great Fire of Baltimore. If you yourself would like a t-shirt, get a hold of me at billmillerflip@yahoo.com and we'll get you set up with a t-shirt. I'm thinking of ways to grow and support and further this research and my filmmaking skills. I'm also getting into custom prints. If you see a scene from one of my short films and you like that photograph, I'm gonna put it on your wall for you. Well, I mean, you're gonna have to do that, but I'll get you the custom print. Get a hold of me at billmillerflip@yahoo.com and we'll get you a t-shirt and we'll get you a print and we'll talk about more. Inquiries and orders, contact me at billmillerflip@yahoo.com. We'll get you a shirt, we'll get you a picture for your wall. It'll be awesome. And you'll be supporting this channel, my filmmaking, and the research. Much appreciated. Thank you. The donation links are in the show notes at the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to visit PayPal or Venmo or buy me a coffee to support the Bill Miller Flip channel, donation links are in the show notes at the bottom of the page. Any and all donations are welcome and appreciated. Thank you. All proceeds would go towards the forwarding and the continuation and the growing of the creativity, of the research, and the short films that I deliver. Been doing this for just over a year now, and I think year 2, we're going to be finding ways to support this channel, to continue its creativity and its growth, and its collaboration with others in the community. Documentaries, short films, interviews, branching out into the community, meeting new people, hearing what they have to say, learning new theories, learning more about existing theories. It's all welcome. It's on the table for discussion. We really do have an amazing community here, and I'm just happy to be part of it. I feel like my skills are growing. I feel like I would love nothing more than to continue doing this short film, live stream, interview path for time to come. Thank you again for joining me today in this experimental version of live stream. just kind of going where the research and the data allows me to go. So narration has been one of the bigger hurdles for me to get over. Connecting it with the film is challenging for me. What I'm doing here is I'm growing my freestyle skills where I can just speak from the heart, just no script, just whatever comes to me. I do my best to share and make it coherent and not a garbled mess. So if I can get better at this type of narration, I think I know we can bring you more films. So what I'm going to do is, as the last 3 minutes of this pass through the short film, adding my final notes and narrations, and I think I'm going to turn around and just let it go on YouTube and run a live stream with this as the main feature, and then I'll have the camera and the microphone on that go round, so that'll give it another layer, and that's what I'm striving to do, is build layers here. It's all about layers and integrating the different softwares and how voice transfers from software to software is key, and same with the video. How does it transfer? Where do I find it in my computer? How do you sculpt it? How do you shape it? How do you manage it? That kind of thing. So it does require a lot of storage. Computer storage, I should say. Some of these files get into the numerous gigabytes to store them on the computer. But then if you have a live stream, it's just live. So I'm getting more familiar with the live stream software and the different capabilities of the software. I really do appreciate your participation and your kind words and support. It really is motivational for me when I read heartfelt comments that, I know the person was feeling something after they watched it, and it sparked something, and it led to a comment to me. And I have so many ongoing conversations where I touch base with people that have left comments in the comment section. So I hope the volume and the levels were good there. I made it through the hour, didn't mess up too bad. Hopefully this is a good recording and I can use it in the next layer. We're gonna send it on over to the next layer. And we're gonna add some more excitement over there. It's gonna be epic. This is really cool. It's just really cool having a very vague idea of how these softwares interact with each other and how they transfer. I mentioned that, but for me to get any kind of grasp on how these things work together is amazing. I don't like getting overwhelmed with the technology. I can only handle it in small doses. But thank you for joining, and I'll see you on the live stream.